Think about this for a second. What if I told you there's a company out there keeping more than 50 cents of pure profit for every single dollar it makes? A business that handled over $12.3 trillion in 1 year, but doesn't actually own a dime of it. Look in your wallet right now, or check your phone. You almost certainly have a card with their logo on it, and you probably use it every single day. But here's the crazy part. Visa is arguably the most lucrative yet completely misunderstood empire in all of global finance. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into how this financial titan acts as an invisible toll booth on modern money. And trust me, the numbers we're about to look at will completely change how you view your next coffee run.
So the biggest illusion about Visa is what they actually do. Most of us assume Visa is a bank, right? Like they're the ones lending you money, checking your credit score, and hitting you with those nasty interest rates. But here's the reality: they don't lend a single cent. Literally, zero credit risk. They are purely a massive technology and clearing network. It's best to think of them as the company that built the global financial highway. And they just sit back and charge a tiny little toll every single time a car drives by.
To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of that highway, look at their 2023 payment volume, $12.3 trillion. I mean, to put that into perspective, if Visa were a country, that volume would easily make it one of the largest economies on Earth. This money is flowing across 4.3 billion users worldwide, working with 14,000 financial institutions just to make it all happen. Again, they don't have the money, but they completely dominate the flow of it.
Section 1. The Invisible Empire. Okay, so to understand how this absolute economic juggernaut works, we need to look at its core engine. The most crucial thing is understanding where Visa actually sits in the financial system. They operate on what's called the four-party clearing model. Imagine the pure chaos of millions of merchants trying to independently verify funds with thousands of different banks all over the world. It would be a gridlocked nightmare, right? Instead, on one side, you've got consumers and their banks. On the other side, merchants and their banks. And Visa sits dead center. They act as the ultimate highly efficient middleman, instantly resolving all the complex authorizations and currency exchanges between these different banks.
Section 2. How does Visa make money? Which brings us to the golden question. If they aren't charging you interest on credit card debt, how does this toll booth actually collect its cash without taking on any of the risk? Well, let's trace a single swipe of your card. When you tap your phone for a coffee, that transaction data flows instantly from you to the coffee shop, and then to the coffee shop's bank. That bank fires the data through Visa's proprietary tech network, called VisaNet, for authorization. VisaNet instantly checks with your bank to see if you have the funds. Approved. The signal fires back. Boom, you have your coffee. Visa earns its revenue just by making that incredibly fast global money movement possible. And let me tell you, that split-second data routing is incredibly profitable. Visa basically clips a ticket based on both the total dollar volume and the raw number of transactions. Just in 2023, they generated a staggering $16 billion in data processing revenue alone. On top of that, they pulled in $14.8 billion from service revenue, plus another $11.6 billion from complex international transactions, which naturally carry higher fees because of currency conversions. But here is the real kicker. Nominal payment volume acts as a natural hedge against inflation. If the price of your daily coffee goes up, Visa's percentage-based revenue automatically goes right up with it. It's brilliant.
Section 3. Economic moat and profitability.
Because of this unique setup, Visa has built a fortress around its business that is practically unmatched today. Listen to this stat. Since 2018, Visa has consistently maintained net profit margins above 50%. I mean, let that sink in for a second. More than half of every single dollar they make is pure profit. This is all fueled by massive economies of scale. Sure, it costs billions to build the network in the first place, but the operational cost to process each new transaction, it's practically zero. And since they don't issue loans, they completely avoid the massive customer acquisition costs and default risks that traditional banks just have to swallow.
To really grasp their dominance, you have to stack Visa up directly against its biggest rival, Mastercard. Between 2018 and 2022, Visa boasted an astonishing 88% return on invested capital. That absolutely crushes Mastercard's 54%. But the technology gap, that's where it gets truly wild. Visa has the tech capacity to handle an incredible 65,000 transactions per second. Compare that to Mastercard, who handles about 5,000. It's literally like comparing a 50-lane superhighway to a quiet 4-lane road.
Section 4. Financial Analysis and Future.
So, with a financial engine running this smoothly, what's the market sentiment right now? Well, a recent analysis from Bergen Yatserum highlights some pretty aggressive market moves by Visa. Earlier this year, Visa announced a massive $30 billion share buyback program. Coupled with their incredibly strong balance sheet, this allowed the stock to positively decouple from the broader market indexes. Basically, even when the wider market was dragging its feet, Visa's sheer cash generation power pushed its stock nearly 20% higher by March. Investors know this company essentially prints cash, no matter what the macroeconomic noise is.
But here is where they get really strategic. Burganya Term notes that Visa is spending heavily on something called client incentives. In 2024, this hit a record 38.3% of their total revenue. Essentially, Visa is willingly paying banks and partners a premium to aggressively capture market share and lock them into long-term exclusivity contracts. They're playing the long game here, right? They're happily taking a hit on their short-term margins, betting that today's expenses will secure a total monopoly on tomorrow's transaction volumes.
For anyone following the stock, this strategy really seems to be holding market confidence. Analysts are currently maintaining a strong outlook for Visa, setting a target price of $375. The main takeaway for observers is that the $330 mark acts as a really solid support level where buyers tend to step in. And that $300 mark, which was actually tested during some recent trade policy fears, is generally viewed as a strong long-term bottom.
Section 5. AI in Cybersecurity.
Now, to protect this massive valuation and keep those 65,000 transactions per second flowing safely, Visa has to heavily guard its gates against some seriously sophisticated financial crime, and they are willing to pay top dollar to do it. According to a recent report in The Economist, Visa is currently dropping a jaw-dropping $2.4 billion to acquire a major cybersecurity giant. This just highlights how absolutely critical digital armor is for them. I mean, one major breach could severely damage the trust that their entire network relies on.
And this $2.4 billion acquisition isn't just your standard IT upgrade. Visa is building a full-on AI-driven shield. They're using advanced neural networks and Bayesian algorithms, which is basically just really complex math that predicts the probability of a transaction being a scam based on past behavior. They use this to instantly analyze massive datasets. The whole goal is to identify and intercept fraudulent activity in milliseconds. They are literally stopping the crime before the transaction is even completed at the cash register. Pretty wild, right?
Section 6. New competitors and threats.
But despite this state-of-the-art armor and their massive market share, this invisible empire still faces some rapidly evolving threats on the horizon. Burganya points out a few key risks. First off, you've got macroeconomic fears, things like the potential for renewed global trade tariffs. Those could slow down international commerce, which is obviously a major revenue driver for Visa. Then, there's the rise of substitute competitors. Digital wallets like Apple Pay and Google Pay are completely changing consumer habits. But more critically, major banks are increasingly exploring stablecoin-backed payment systems. These blockchain technologies theoretically have the power to connect banks directly, which would entirely bypass traditional clearing networks, like Visa.
Which leaves us with this final, crucial question. As the very definition of money and digital ownership continues to change, can new tech ever truly bypass Visa's deeply entrenched toll booth? Or will this invisible empire, with its massive cash reserves and technological scale, simply absorb these threats and find a brand new way to charge a fee?